Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Wales of Wall Street. We have an interesting update video here from PROPY. We go through a few of the other areas of interest around real estate, utilizing NFT/tokenization, and of course blockchain. And to add to the equation, AI, a very interesting announcement over the last 24 hours from PROPY, which did have a bit of an uptake price-wise in the chart as well, which we'll touch upon towards the end of this video. Before we do that, don't forget to go through some of the other videos on the channel, loads of different topics and discussions, various different assets that we talk about, of course. And don't forget to smash the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Guys, let's go straight into this. One quick thing, if you haven't watched it yet, go check out Lewis Jackson's channel. For sure, I'll leave a link at the end of this one. We had an amazing conversation around CBDCs, XRP, Quant, and a few other things as well. Really dot connecting in this one. It was absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyed it, and we'll definitely be doing some more in the future. So check that one out when you get a second. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys do as well. And welcome to the channel, those that came across from that channel. Yeah, the subscribers jumped up quite a bit over the last few days, which is pretty amazing from my side in terms of things. So thank you to you guys for joining us, and obviously Lewis, giving a bit of a thumbs up for ourselves. Also, hopefully we can return the favor one day. So go check that out. Let's go into this topic, guys. First and foremost, before we go into PROPY itself, I just wanted to reiterate to you guys the importance of understanding the real estate market a bit more when it comes to the utilization within blockchain, and certainly as we talk more and more about NFTs, but not just NFTs, we could argue PNFTs, which is essentially shortened for physical NFTs. This whole aspect of tokenized assets, which can pretty much operate around any sector you can possibly think of. And certainly, especially when there is an item or a product or a material, or certainly an asset in this stance of things, housing, cars, etc., that kind of magnitude, to be able to be tokenized, utilizing smart contracts for everything like processing, verifying, speeding up the process of the housing industry in general. I mean, I don't know what it's like, and please do drop a comment below, because I'm always up for learning other regions and countries' ways of doing things. Here in the UK, it's predominantly always traditionally been a slow process for buying and selling houses because of the chains, i.e. a buyer may be trying to also sell their house, and they're waiting on people and they're waiting on people, and vice versa. So that can itself take a long time, but also just the traditional like paperwork, solicitors, land registry checks, money laundering checks, all this stuff. And we'll go into that a bit more detail in a second, because there is now, well, there already was really with blockchain in general to speed all this up, but the integration of AI is very, very interesting. And we'll go on to that because PROPY made a fantastic announcement. But this particular part is about the market value of real estate, guys. This is absolutely huge. So some of this data, which is basically pulling back from 2021, right? $3.69 trillion worth in 2021, with a kind of mindset to go up to 3.81 trillion in 2022. Now that was obviously last year, and some of the data that I was looking at earlier today, by 2030, guys, they think that this will be 5.85 trillion, which is absolutely staggering amounts of money. Very nearly double to what we are today, which is kind of understandable because that's about 6-7 years away. And it will come around quick for sure. But just here in the UK, I'll put this in dollars terms. At the moment, $1.7 trillion is also attributed particularly to commercial real estate here in the UK. Those bigger numbers before, by the way, were worldwide global real estate market sizes, and certainly the valuation of it as a market. This is phenomenal. And the reason I talk about this as a topic is really to emphasize the point about fractionalization of things, tokenization. But one of the really big key points we talked about this in Hedera video recently about diamonds and the ability to buy diamonds more easily now. The accessibility of being able to do this is incredible. And you always thought like you need to have a multitude of money to invest in property, but this is all changing, and it's really warming inside to see that there's opportunity for people, for arguably minimalistic kind of money that could be available to you to do this kind of thing. We'll go into a couple of examples in a second. But I'm really excited to see the development within this sector. And just to touch on that, fractionalization of NFTs, I want to again mention that NFTs aren't just pieces of art. This is really anything and everything that isn't the ratio of a one-to-one value. So if I give you $1, ignore the debt behind it. If I give you $1, it's $1. If I give you £1, it's £1. But an NFT, non-fungible token, means that anything beyond that remit, beyond that ratio law, if you like, becomes an option to be able to be enhanced in terms of value, and have that digitalized, and have that also based on data algorithm, particularly in the housing market. You can imagine, like for example, recently here at home, I had a valuation on the house, and that means a surveyor comes out and pretty much dictates what the price could be, and that could either work in your favor or not in your favor. It's not really fully kind of accurate. It's kind of based on what house has been selling around the area, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, that's a very archaic system. But with the ability of blockchain, AI, data, etc., this can now be all on one system in terms of supply, demand, things that are going on economically as well, and just not even having to do any research manually. It will just do it automatically. So it speeds that kind of thing up more, but also you get a more transparent and more confident kind of valuation in your property as well. But it goes further than that with these developments, and PROPY, for those that don't know, go and check out the intro video of this fantastic project that we did a while back. But this is really going to start enhancing the real estate industry. And it already has done, because a number of houses and properties have been sold through the PROPY system over the last year. And it was very apparent even last year in terms of the monetary value, and how quick it was sold and how quick it was processed was phenomenal. But there are a number of other projects that I follow. For example, Labs Group will talk very quickly about Metropoly as well, which utilizes Ethereum mostly. And of course, the big giants themselves, Hedera and Ripple, have gone down their own avenues of real estate. So whilst I talk about PROPY, it's very important to understand that this is something that's really going to grow over the years to come, and become way more awareness driven to the masses. And certainly the ability, when people find out more and more that they can utilize their crypto, or indeed their assets, and convert to crypto to do this with minimal money, really. And I'm talking about from like $100 in most cases, to put certain amounts of investment in and get yielded rewards from that throughout the year. And certainly over a 5-year period, that could be something quite significant. They argue like housing is obviously one of the most, supposedly one of the most secure areas you can invest in, because despite things like inflation, etc., they tend to hold their residual value a lot more stronger than any other asset or property acquisition that you might have over others. So there's something really to consider in that aspect. But this point here is what got me when I was researching for the topic literally today, and I completely missed this from yesterday. So PROPY announced this combining the power of AI and real estate. And it goes back to that point I just made a minute ago about speeding the transaction up. And this is basically quite fascinating. The tool automatically reads purchase agreements, creates a transaction tracker for you, and starts processing the closing. This is the great part for me personally. It intentionally adds deadlines for each step of the transaction, guiding everyone involved in the transaction on when the first and second deposits should be made, when the loan should be approved, and much more, all in an instant. Gone are the days of tediously navigating paperwork and engaging in endless back and forth communications to gather simple information. It's quite simple really to think about it, and why the industry never had some form of automation in the past, I will never know. But maybe it's to protect the people that work in the industry, and to protect perhaps the values and the traditions of how houses were bought and sold. But the fact of the matter is that this will become bigger and bigger, and I do see that more retail, certainly retail, like users like us, general public, estate agents will diminish. And I think that will be seen in the commercial area as well, as more people utilize AI facilities, AI infrastructures. But also now these companies are really advancing themselves. And as I said, with the fact that there's ecosystems like Hedera and Ripple already out there, especially with the XRP ledger, XRPL, there's massive utilization on that now with the home coin. Again, we'll touch on that in a second, but you can see the pattern. And it's like when I spoke in a couple of videos recently about this bubble mentality, where we went to the .com bubble back in the early noughties, or certainly the late 90s, and it's an opportunity that's opened up to everyone. You just need to take a bit of time to educate and research, and hopefully through videos like this, it will at least give you a bit of a nudge to think about it more, even if it's going over someone's heads, or you're coming in at a stage where maybe it's being talked about in a more advanced way. Don't worry about it. Take your time and research this, because it's an absolute great opportunity to educate yourselves, research more, and the opportunity to potentially get involved and invest in this. A load of people always say, "Oh, I wish I did this, I wish I did this," and I'm always hearing certainly more senior people of my age saying that sort of thing. And when they're presented to us, obviously if you don't know about it, it's difficult, but hopefully there are people out there realizing this opportunity. It's absolutely huge. So this is really interesting to see this development. I'm actually in contact with the PROPY team over the last couple of days to try and get an interview sorted with these guys over the next couple of weeks. I'm obviously very busy on top of this announcement and what's going on in general with their business. It's massively busy for them all the time. So I really appreciate them communicating with me and trying to get something organized. And I'm looking forward to providing that for you as an audience. I think it's going to be a really exciting topic. But that aside, again, there are other projects and companies out there that are doing similar things. Metropoly is very interesting indeed. Buy real estate with crypto in seconds, utilizing things like KYC, obviously, getting your information to make sure that you're a real person and this is done legitimately. But you'll see here, for example, in this very marketplace, the opportunity to buy all these different properties. Now, not necessarily outright, but even just to invest a small amount of money. And some of these have some higher opportunities to actually enter into the opportunity to invest in some small parts of the properties. But this one here, for example, $280. They do say that there's some from $100. I haven't actually found one yet, but that's like, it's just the usual marketing ploy to get you involved and get you interested in this. But what's really cool is you can go into each of these individual ones. Your MetaMask pops up in the corner. You can't obviously see mine because it doesn't work like that, but it's really cool to see that you have, look at all this information and opportunity. You can literally buy quantities of that in terms of shares, and it shows you all the different times of pricing based on that particular property, and also really cool calculators down here in terms of like, okay, I'm investing X amount, even if it was like $500 or something. It tells you about the dividend yield over the net period, 5 years, and as an example, and shows you roughly how much that 500 could increase. As I said, you may want to put more than that in to get some actual reflective return over a long period of time. But some people might just use it as a bit of a small safeguard or saving opportunity to try and get some form of return on their investment. So gives you a bit of an overview and an understanding, but it's quite interesting. It's quite funny. I was like, I wonder if you can actually go and see these places. And there's a little message on there saying that actually Metropoly either own these or service them, or they have agencies or partners that actually serves them for them, and they recommend or say that you can't actually go and see them. So it's a bit weird, because to me, it's kind of it's one of those dilemmas in my head. I'm like looking at the picture and going, that could just be a Google image and we're just investing in some random thing. But doing a bit of vetting around behind this team is really interesting. The guys are very interesting indeed. Their background specifically in retail Sorry, real estate. I keep saying retail. Real estate. And the same with the property team. They all have backgrounds in real estate, and they saw an opportunity to see how they could advance the systems, the infrastructures, and push that forward. I won't go too much into this because we covered this already a month or so ago in one of the previous videos for XRP. But again, it's the reiteration that the likes of Ripple, the likes of Hedera are talking about this massively. Some really interesting statistics here furthermore. But also, again, the ability of smart contracts. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Hedera pulling in that AI algorithm as well at some point. And particularly because Hedera is kind of like a DAG system, direct cyclic graph. If you don't know what that is, do check out the video I did on that from an educational piece. It's really fascinating. But it certainly concludes things like how the whole entire system will work and move forward. With all sectors integrated with one another, similar to some of the aspects that I mentioned earlier in this video. So it's a really, really big opportunity here. I've mentioned obviously about the markets and things, but of course the housing strength, with the exemption of things like crashes, is like no other market really in terms of its store of value. Its opportunity there is quite significant. So just keep researching yourselves as well. There's so many case studies, so many opportunities out here. Bali, here's a great one. Designing your dream, creating beautiful villas. So Bali Texture, very interesting indeed. They started accepting XRP as payment, and a load of other opportunities to try and invest in those areas as well. So if you think about it from your own sofa, you can start doing this, but also for properties around the world. Can you imagine in the traditional methods how hard and difficult that would be, where you even start, or even how much money you would have to accommodate that? And now it's being kind of started in some of these projects from $100 onwards. Absolutely ridiculous to think about it in this way. One of the last points before we go into the charts of PROPY, just another confirmation here more recently, June 27th, the home coin. So this is the first mortgage-backed stablecoin being utilized on the XRP ledger. Really interesting bit of information. I'll leave all these links, or some of the links, in the description for you guys to have a read through. But it's literally picking up. And I did the first PROPY video probably nearly 2 years ago. When I first found out about it, I used a website called Crypto Slate, and I was looking at all the different sectors like housing, like real estate. How is that possible? And as soon as I started learning on it, I did a bit of dot connecting, and then realized who the team were and what this was actually implying. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is like absolutely huge. And if you remember that number earlier, 5.85 trillion worth of real estate by 2030, I think it'll be higher than that, to be honest, because I think the awareness will kick in, the mass adoption of crypto, blockchain usage, smart contracts, etc., and AI probably speeding that process up even further than what people anticipated. I mean, this is a huge market to go for from an investor's perspective, isn't it? There's a bit more information here about the home coin. Again, I'll leave details of this at the end, but it's absolutely fascinating to see this development and see so many projects involved in this area. And why do I think this is a good time now? Well, commercial properties are having a bit of a hit now, obviously, since the pandemic. More offices and companies moved out of them, so a lot of them are turning into residential. However, there's no stimulus at the moment because obviously inflation and rates. Certainly here in the UK, I know the US is having issues. It's probably the same across the rest of the world as well. Lots of defaults going on, mortgages falling apart. But the mortgage pricing at the moment, the rates, etc., the prices are so bad. It's kind of like, okay, well, where can I put my money? Or at least if I've got an accumulation of money, how can I get some of that return on investment, as it were? But there's other things to think about. Before I go into this model of the PROPY coin since it launched, because unfortunately TradeView doesn't show all the way back. Just wanted to give you a bit of an overview where this price point could go based on history. Other things to consider about the real estate market, guys, and PROPY do this really well. They've actually got certified agents now, and you can go on training courses to learn how to be a Web3 estate agent. And can you imagine this, like doing it from your home, giving people virtual tours via the metaverse? Tick that box, because we know that's already in place via blockchain, etc. And imagine things like Rightmove, for example, turning into Web3. There's some really interesting thought process here, always going around in my head. But yeah, for me, it's kind of like, well, also, if you look at that dot-com bubble, how many companies started with and how many were left behind. It's really interesting to see which ones we could be going for right now, how many will survive, how many will take over existing systems and existing estate agents. And I can honestly see with a mini crystal ball that many estate agents around the world, including here in the UK, will just fall off the face of the earth, because this will just replace it. We're already in a digital formatted world anyway. We've already seen the excitement around Rightmove when it launched many years ago, how that developed and changed everything. Things like Purple Bricks here in the UK, the ability to not even have to have estate agents anymore. You just do viewings yourselves, you buy and sell through that platform. But now when we talk about solicitors and all the checks and stuff, all being done through blockchain, through the usage of smart contracts and now AI, how could you not see the estate agent market just depleting and being taken over by this? So I really do think there's some lessons have been learned from that early noughties period that perhaps people haven't perceived yet. And it's going to be really interesting to see what the retaliation is, or how many have the chance or the time to adapt and maybe integrate themselves into these new systems. Maybe there's a business case there. Maybe someone needs to create a business and actually start educating the estate agents around the world about this coming, or at least how they can be a part of it. Just really quickly, because someone asked in the previous video and I didn't mention it, these are the kind of exchanges that you can get the PROPY token on. Obviously Coinbase is one of the structured ones there, CoinX, and Huobi they're the three that have got confirmed exchange reserves. So those are one of the safe ones, but I use Bitrue all the time. I haven't had any issues thus far. There's a couple of others. I haven't used any of the other ones at all, so I can't really comment. But just use them wisely as always with anything. But of course, they're the places that you can get the PROPY token. But here's just an example. If we go into the TradeView chart, when it first launched, obviously a big uptake back up in this part here in 2018. Hitting around $4.60, guys. More recently in 2022, certainly when it started integrating and utilizing its tokens infrastructure to sell and buy houses, the first case studies came out, that triggered up as well, $3.54. We're now at 35 cents, guys. So on that note, just keep those in mind as we go into a bit more lucrative detail on that in the chart. It's really interesting point to make that we're kind of entering areas that are of the lower area, of course, understandably and obviously, but there's a massive opportunity for some upside in the future, and especially as this industry takes on, as PROPY builds more and more. As I just said, that announcement about AI, because there are, I would say, limited account holders of PROPY token, you do get more illustrious rises up in quicker time speeds than maybe some other assets that you might know of. So in this particular instance, we went from that sort of 27-28 cent mark all the way up, guys, to 60 cents, which is quite phenomenal really for a 24-hour period. It does shoot back down, or tends to anyway, but you can sometimes, if you're really on the ball with these moves and announcements from companies like this in the early stages, to get some really reflective return. 123% gain in that 24-hour period, which is quite phenomenal really. If you're a holder, I'm sure many people took advantage. It looks like they did, because if we zoom in, we can clearly see there was definitely a downturn, and we reduced quite significantly. So at the moment, at that 35 cent, I do anticipate this to be coming down to the lower regions again at 30 cents, and potentially messing about again with that 25 cent mark as well. We are in a winter market. You can obviously see as well as you take the data out that we were on this continuous downward trend anyway, albeit it is starting to stabilize slowly, but I do think that these uptakes do drag them down, and subconsciously it brings it down even further as well to these lower gaps. So just keep an eye out for that. These are where I've got my buy orders in. I didn't take advantage of the upsell or the upward trend of PROPY over the last few days. I'm a long-term holder and trying to accumulate. So those are my two areas of interest again, for sure. We can see just about, if I zoom in a bit more, where we are currently on 35. It's at the lower spectrum. It has had a dip down and pulled itself up, but I do anticipate us to potentially test that 34-ish cent mark over the next couple of days, before we may come back down to these lower areas as well. So keep that in mind. I'm not saying it'll definitely happen. That's what I'm doing personally. It's not financial advice, obviously, as well. So let's see what happens. But just to reiterate that point, keep an eye on Propy's news all the time, because you do see these big shoot ups when announcements occur, and certainly when there's been a big sale as well. So keep an eye on their marketplace for some big property sales. It tends to be those kind of trigger points that make these reflective patterns in the chart for Propy. So there's a bit of data. We've already talked about where Propy could go potentially in the next bull runs. I do anticipate realistically that, particularly with the adoption and the real use cases now coming into play, that we could easily get back to those big heights that we saw back in 2018, albeit that was kind of like a launch phase craziness. But that sort of 2022 mark that we saw, the 350, I do anticipate trying to get back to that $5 mark in the next bull cycle, beyond that. So when you look at that in terms of its current price and where that could get to, there's a big opportunity for gain there. And I think it's a really interesting opportunity. But at the moment, with the RSIs at that bottom left being so middle ground, I'm not touching this for a few days to see if it comes down to those lower regions that I just mentioned. But you can see on the performance side on the right hand side here, it's actually not too bad. Obviously we've had that big influx over the last 24 hours, so understandably the week and the month's going to be up anyway, but that year to date is just holding on. But that 1 year one is still a negative, but it still shows you there's good opportunity in the long run to gain some great return on this asset if you are accumulating or investing in it. I'm certainly trying to accumulate as much as I can. It's been a bit of a slow process because I'm in quite a few real estate related tokens, but yeah, we'll get there for sure. I think there's still a bit of time for sure over the next year and a half before that big bull cycle kicks in, whenever that might be. But yeah, this industry is huge, guys. The opportunity is huge. The projects are fantastic. And as I said, I fully recommend educating yourselves a bit more on it, taking some of the info that we got from this video, and hopefully you'll apply that method, learn more yourselves, and start really getting interested in this sector, because in my opinion, it's overlooked too much. And we must always consider all the variations of sectors that blockchain prevails in. On that note, guys, we'll wrap that up there. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, found it informative, and let us know if you've ever been involved in any of the NFT related projects towards real estate or commercial estate. Very interested to know. And let us know if you're invested in Propy or any of the other projects or tokens that we just mentioned, or any others that we haven't mentioned. I'd love to learn more and more about this as much as I can. It's absolutely amazing. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.